What a cozy fire. I love the smell. Ah, this feels good. Yo ho! Today's episode will teach you how to paint fire. As someone who loves painting it, I guess it's time to share my secrets on how to paint good looking fire. We will go through all the necessary steps, of course, one at a time. And for this session, we will paint a bonfire. But all the tricks you learn here can be applied to any other type of fire you'd like to paint. I will show you a couple of examples later. Painting fire can be as mesmerizing as sitting in front of one. So let's stop staring into the flame and get started. Alright, we need a reference, like this one. You can take a screenshot or download it later from the video description. As usual, I would recommend watching the entire video once before going back and forth. When you paint fire, or this can be said about any subject, look at the object's shape, its structure and how it moves. It's highly important that you watch closely, learn the object's nature, observe how the flame moves and flickers. Do you see these little flame particles at the top end and how they vanish? Sometimes it's the small details that will make a painting. To understand an object, it can help to mimic its movement with your brush for a second. A dry exercise. Do I look stupid? Don't worry, this is perfect. Now this one is important. It's best that you hold your brush diagonal to the surface when painting flames. By doing so, you will leave a non-continuous texture on the ground. A rocky crust of paint, so to say. This helps with the smaller flames on the outer side. I would recommend leaving your brush more dry than wet. So mimic the movement and only leave a trail of paint. Move the brush in a similar style to how the fire flickers. You copy its movement pattern, so to say. Let the brush touch the ground shortly, but not entirely when you're moving across your canvas. Alright, we are almost there. Only a couple of thoughts before we start. Fire looks the brightest when everything around it is dark. And when everything is dark in a painting, your eyes will gravitate to the brightest spot. So, your viewer will focus on the brightest spot first. Now, to create a vivid painting, the trick is to not only have black and the bright colors of a flickering flame as a contrast, but to also have a variety of other colors in your scene as well. That means that you should not reduce your painting to black, red, orange or yellow, but also have other colors in it. When you think of colors, think of them in terms of groups and how they work together. Some of them are in contrast to each other and boost each other. I won't bore you with color theory here, don't worry. Just take it for now, that some colors pop if they're close to each other. So, if you couple them together, they will boost each other and look more vibrant than sitting there alone. For this painting, our dominant colors will be yellow, orange, red, brown and blue. Blue will make the other colors pop. Alright, to save some time, I've already made a quick sketch. It doesn't need to be detailed. We will form the painting with our brush mostly and decide on the fly how to go from there. Take the sketch as a rough reference and don't follow it religiously. Your viewer will never see or know about the reference. Okay, our first goal will be to get color everywhere. And by that, we determine the size of each element in the painting. After that, we will be working on all areas at the same time, more or less. So, let's start with the fire first. We will use a mix of yellow and orange to create a shape that resembles our fire. This creates an estimate of how big we want our fire to be. Try to angle it to the left or right side to let it look more dynamic. A fire going straight up looks static and isn't drawing a viewer's attention as much. I will go to the left with my fire. With our next step, we enclose the fire with a dark color. Don't go all in on the dark and black immediately, but paint the background in a dark brown. You can also mix it with red or orange, but make it dark. You can create a glow here if you gradually encircle it with black later. Leave a bit room at the top for our next step. And don't worry, this painting is done faster than you may think. Some sections here will get speed up. Alright, time for our next step. Here we set a ground layer for the sky and use a dark blue. Now to make this section and the overall scene more atmospheric, we add pine trees. Use a dark brown, almost black, or a very dark blue that is almost black and form them. Whoa, what have I done? Oh well, I wanted to do this step before the other. I guess in the end it doesn't really matter which one you do first. In either case, you can always let it dry, the marvel of creating videos. So, we will come back to the trees. Back to the fire again. Here are a couple of things to consider. We will shape the fire's form by not only painting it directly, but also painting over it with the background. And on top of that, we can add flames again. Thus, we add and subtract from it, back and forth. When painting fire, I would recommend not immediately mixing your yellow, orange and red all together, but just taking a scoop of each color from your palette and letting it mix together on the ground. Let them mix and blend together on your painting. You don't need to copy the photo, as long as you mimic the movement with your brush. The total sum of all elements will make a believable scene for the viewer. That's what we are aiming at. Just remember, if you make it too big or want the flame to move differently, you can always paint dark brown over it. To ramp up the detail, you can add wood inside the bonfire. This also creates more contrast. One orange-reddish line for thinner wood that is almost burned up, and a dark red line for thicker wood that isn't burned completely yet. A red line with some dark brown bumps in it can make it look like as if there was wood or stones in front of the fire. Always remember that you are selling an idea of a fire in the form of a painting here. Your painting doesn't need to be photorealistic, and it doesn't need to copy each detail from the reference. But if everything tunes right, it will convey a story. The keyword we are looking for here is probably silhouettes. They can convey enough information to a viewer while at the same time not revealing too much. And also remember to go darker with the brown around the fire. We want the area around the fire as dark as possible later on to have high contrast. Something that is also nice to look at are small stray flames on the side and top. Just add them here and there. You may have noticed now that the video isn't following me as fast as I explain the steps. So you will see those little flame particles now. What you can also add is ember flying around. Just add small yellowish orange dots here and there. Also add small orange horizontal or vertical lines in the area around and below the fire. So it looks like that the light from the fire is bouncing off from stone and grass. You will probably see me doing this multiple times during the video. It will all add up on details. Finally, back to the trees. Use a dark brown, almost black, or a very dark blue that is almost black and form them. You absolutely don't need to be precise here. Just try to capture the overall form of a pine tree. You can leave it even as an almost abstract form. The viewer's brain will connect the dots and recognize it as trees. Paintings work halfway through the mind. A small detail can be enough for your brain to fill in the rest. Pass pro toto. If trees are too much for your taste, there are other options. I would recommend creating circular shapes that resemble smoke as an alternative. Leave more blue on the side, so it looks like that the smoke goes into one direction. Otherwise, I will let you watch for now how the trees are made and the background painted black. I will take a backseat for a second and let the cozy fire take over. Stick around so I can show you the finished painting and a couple of examples. Woo! What a ride! Now, this is how your bonfire may look like in the end. When you do your painting, I would recommend making your bonfire big enough, like pictured here. Make it big, so you don't have a tiny flame sitting somewhere lost in the middle. As promised, here are a couple of other examples on how to paint fire. Don't ask me why there are so many of them, but I love painting fire. Maybe I'm the god of hellfire, and I'll bring you fire. Fire.